So the injury bug is starting early this year, man. Elijah Mitchell has officially been placed on the IR. The Niners are bringing in Marlon Mack off the street, meaning that our current depth chart has Jeff Wilson Jr. up the first for touches, Jordan Mason, rookie, Ty Davis Price, and at the aforementioned Marlon Mack. Obviously, we got rid of JaMychal Hasty in the offseason. Obviously, we got rid of Trey Sermon in the offseason. Losing Elijah Mitchell is going to hurt, but how do you look at this current backfield? Do you like the guys that we have stepping up?
No, it's a lot of unproven guys. And Jeff Wilson Jr. has been pretty solid the few years that he's been with the team. I'll give him that. But other than that, I mean, it's a rookie, it's a couple of rookies, and a guy who's now starting to become a journeyman in the NFL. And yeah, having that type of unproven backfield is pretty worrisome for a team that relies so heavy on the run. We've talked about it before. This team is almost nearly unstoppable whenever the running game is going, because that just opens up so much. That opens up that play action, that opens up some of these deeper routes that these receivers could run. And if you're not able to run the ball, your offense could become very stagnant, and it could be some dark days for Kyle Shanahan in that offense.
My thoughts, obviously losing Elijah Mitchell's explosiveness, because the guy was averaging 7 yards a carry in the first half against the Bears. That's what's going to hurt you the most. So I think the most logical thing to do is replace him with someone who's just as explosive. Do we have that guy on the roster? I think we might. And I'm going to say that I don't think Jeff Wilson Jr. should be the guy that gets the bulk of the touches. I actually like Jordan Mason a little bit more, at least based off the preseason. He showed a little bit more explosiveness. Now, I can't say how good he is at pass blocking. I don't know if he could be a full 3-down back. He's probably a guy that's going to need complementary duties. But I think that the Niners, if they want to replace Mitchell to the best of their abilities, I think that Mason might be the answer and not Price or not Jeff Wilson Jr. That's how I feel, because Jeff Wilson Jr. really hasn't looked explosive the last couple of years. He's great at the goal line. He's a good vulture. And you know that term certainly if you're talking fantasy football. But I don't think that he can be that 3-down back for the Niners. I don't think he could be that lead back out of their rotation. Ty Davis Price, a little bit of an unproven guy. Obviously, he did it at the SEC level last year. But when we went up to draft him, some people thought it was a little bit of a reach. The Niners have been known to reach at running back in the draft, so I don't know how good Ty Davis Price will translate to the NFL. Mason, like I said, at least it looked explosive in the preseason. Marlon Mack, the biggest knock on him is obviously he tore his Achilles a couple of years ago and hasn't really looked the same. I believe in the past he was a 1,000-yard rusher. For whatever reason, he wasn't able to beat out anyone on the Houston Texans roster. Dameon Pierce really showed strong this offseason. And Rex Burkhead, oddly enough, had like 79% of the touches in week 1. Weird thing if you're talking about fantasy football, but Marlon Mack was not able to get ahead of either of those two guys. So I thought he would at least be better than Burkhead at this point in his career. But I think he's just depth. So I'm not going to read too much into Marlon Mack being there. I just think that he's a guy that maybe could fit the scheme, and that's all Kyle's hoping that Elijah Mitchell does return from this injury at some point during this year. But unfortunately, it's starting to become a trend with Eli Mitchell. He was injured a lot last year too. I think he missed 6 games, if I'm not mistaken. And love his running style, love the back, love the talent, but that maybe answers some of the questions why he was going in the 6th round. You also got to remember, too, that we do replace some of the running back production with Deebo Samuel. Deebo had a rushing touchdown in week 1. He also had a fumble, which looked ugly. I don't know how much the Niners can use Deebo Samuel in the running game. I don't know how much of a sticking point that was in contract negotiations. We know that he has incentives built into his deal, but I don't know if Kyle wants to use him in that way, wants to burn him out this early in the regular season with Eli Mitchell on the shelf. What do you think of kind of that situation? Do you think Deebo becomes more of a running back this early in the season?
I mean, for some reason, we're not able to get some of that production from some of these other guys like Jordan Mason or Jeff Wilson Jr. I mean, at that point, what's your other option? You really don't have any. You're going to have to start using him more into that. What were they calling it last year? That H-back role?
The wide back role.
Yeah,
I'm also concerned, too. I'll throw this out there. I don't want them using Trey more in the running game.
No.
From what I saw in week 1, from what I saw in that game against the Bears, he doesn't know how to slide. If he keeps taking on defenders and has to run 13 times a game like he did in week 1, that is not a recipe for success, and he's going to get his ass kicked.
No, yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, unless for some reason this week he starts to kind of figure it out and he's able to slide and get out of those dangerous situations, or maybe starts just heading towards the sideline when he does get out there and run, then yeah, I don't want to see Trey Lance, running for his life 13 times a game either. And, to touch back with Debo, again, the reports of him not wanting to be in that type of role were all just reports. It never came out of him. We never heard it from him. We never heard it from Kyle or anybody on the team. So we really don't know what that situation really is like. So it would be interesting to see if he does start turning into that wide back, player again, what the relationship will be like, if we'll see just clear frustration from him, like on the sidelines, or if the offense really does get a real explosiveness from him doing that. Will that just amp him to be like, okay, I this is my role and this is what I do better than anybody else in the league. So it'll just be interesting to see how he would react to it and how successful the team could be around him. I know we also didn't have George Kittle for that week 1. He's huge in the run game. The way he could just go from one block to another and be blocking 10 yards down the field just opens up so much space for a lot of these guys running the football. So if we're able to get him back, I think some of these younger guys could run behind him. And, hopefully, and Trent Williams, he's still looking like a monster anyway. So I think we should be okay without Elijah Mitchell. If he's only gone for a few weeks, I think we should be all right.
All right, guys, what do you think of Eli Mitchell hitting the IR? Do you think any of these guys on the roster can replace his level of production? Are you a Jordan Mason truther? Do you believe in Ty Davis Price? Or maybe Jeff Wilson Jr. is good enough to get it done? Got to know in the comments section. Leave a like on the video, helps the channel. Subscribe to the channel, helps the channel more. 49 reasons to listen to right here. Juju and Jose, we'll see you next time.